Hi, hello. It's Onion Gems, and with me is.
My name's Kevin. I'm from Dirty 20 Gaming most of the time, and it is my pleasure, as always, to come over here and talk with you about these topics. What is our topic for today?
Nepo Babies.
Yes, very topical. Lots of it going on. It's a thing that's been with us, I think, as long as there have been famous and rich people, right?
Yeah,
But I think maybe a good place to start with this is what people think of when they think of Nepo babies. Because it's got a whole sort of stigma attached to it. And when you say the word Nepo baby, you watch people making decisions behind their eyes, right? So, what we think the kids are probably like, what we think the parents are probably like, and what we think the public is how they're gonna respond.
yeah.
So yeah, maybe we start with that. When you think of a nepo baby, what are your thoughts? Like, what do you expect to see when you hear the phrase nepo baby?
It's someone from a rich family who have
Mhm.
everything and not even try hard because
Yeah,
everything have on silver plate.
yeah. So I think my first thought is when I think about nepo kids is that they're probably very entitled. They, that it's what they've grown up in the middle of, so it's what they expect, right? It's not their fault that they want everything because they've always got everything.
Yeah,
They may have never even seriously thought about what it's like to not have what you want.
yeah.
Um,
And
yeah,
also the anger of other people who want the things they have, but they can't for some
yeah,
reasons.
yeah. And again, back to those kids, they see. I mean, they grow up. You watch your parents. That's where you learn, right? But their parents are stars and bosses of companies and big, powerful people. And so that's what those kids see, and they think that's normal that everybody bows down to their parents. And very, very few of them, I think, again, because I mean, you're a child, your brain hasn't developed all the way yet. That's not an insult, that's a statement of science as we know it right now, right? So there's very few of them, I think, are going to be able to see beyond that and see that there are people out there that don't live the same life that they do and don't have the same breaks that they do, right?
Yeah, and they are kind of like those children, they are kind of treated like nobility or
Oh,
royal.
yes. Oh, absolutely, yes. And again, that's what they learn to expect. So they grow up in this bubble where they're special, where everybody treats them with respect, where they get every toy that they want, where they're just every whim is taken care of. And again, they don't know any different. And then we see some of them, you see them quite often somewhere in their early teens where they have that first experience and they see quote unquote poor people or working class people. They see people struggling. They see people that they find out that there's people out there that don't have enough to eat. And then we see them doing things like that. And it's interesting because they kind of get mocked for doing this too, but they'll suddenly develop a social conscience and want to
Yeah,
start helping others. They want to start charities and from the outside it looks like, oh, oh, good for you, right? Look at you being nice. But I think that's them maybe for the first time in their lives seeing how the other half lives, as the saying goes, right?
yeah, but they also some kind of get into troubles like
Oh,
mental and addictions because they see how fake his world around them.
yes. Oh, 100%. Yeah. When we were doing the research for this, the one point that kept coming up is that um, they're they're in this state, and then they get spoiled so much, they get treated so special, they get treated like you said, like nobility and royalty. They grow up thinking that's normal, and that can lead to um, all kinds of mental health issues. Not only narcissism, where they think that they're special, but also almost like a complete lack of empathy for other people.
Yeah,
That.
and
And as an
depression.
adult, yeah, oh, and depression and anxiety, and especially as we get into the actual when Nepo babies go wrong, right? When they are not up to the task and start getting trolled and beat up on the internet, that's going to leave marks too. You
Yeah,
said the internet never goes away, right? If you did something when you were 10 or 12 or 14 and put it on the internet with the help of your parents, that's there forever. And if it was bad, it's bad forever. And you got to grow up under the shadow of that.
yeah.
So,
Also, could you start why we're doing this episode and telling about the Brooklyn Beckham?
oh, okay, sure. The original inspiration for this was as of the time of recording, a fairly recent situation that's spiraled out of control, thanks to the paparazzi and everybody else. But Brooklyn Beckham, son of David and Victoria Beckham, probably one of the most famous families in the world. Certainly in Europe, not quite so much over here, but still everybody knows who they are. And one of their children, Brooklyn Beckham, has had issues in the past with them. Has spoken about being a commodity, a part of the Beckham franchise rather than an actual human being, and they've really lashed out recently because of a couple of specific events. I think that we can probably talk about later, but the they've made it very, very public, and they've essentially tried to remove themselves from the family. Um, and that was kind of the trigger to see, as a young adult person, having all these issues because of how they were raised and who they were raised by and how they were treated was kind of the triggering event for this particular episode.
Yes, and also I saw people react at the situation like, why he complains? He have
Mm.
everything. He's rich.
Yes.
He have family like that.
Yeah, and I think that's we're talking about how the public responds and what the public thinks of when they think of Nepo babies. I think that's a key part of it. And part of it is that near worship of those famous people, right? Like the Kardashians, for example, or the Beckhams in this case that we were talking about. They're so famous. They're an entity. They're a business. They're not just people, but they're also treated specially. Like you said, they're treated like royalty.
Yes,
And I think when the public sees that and they if you don't think about it too much, you think, wow, would that be a great place to grow up, right? Wouldn't that be awesome with two super hyper rich parents that can just living in a mansion? Wouldn't that be great? And they don't think about the downsides that could potentially go along with that. Right? So that's
yeah,
certainly one way that the public looks at it. Um, the other thing that we saw was the public takes sides. So Brooklyn Beckham was trolled and had a lot of bad social media tags and things like that. The parents have been questioned about their everything from their parenting skill to how they're responding to this to how they behaved at their child's wedding. That was a big issue. Um, Making things
also,
about themselves, or making it about the brand rather than about the person. So there's a lot of negativity that goes along with it too.
also,
Not that I'm
al-
saying there's anything good about the parents, but go ahead. Yeah.
also, the brother of Brooklyn, he
Mhm.
invited the Spice Girls band from who was Victoria Beckham, and
Yes.
the songs from Spice Girls rise up as support. So it's another side of conflict.
Yeah, and yeah, that takes us really nicely to our expectations for the parents too, because there's the few different camps. There's the spoil them rotten and give them their best lives camp, where they treat we've got the money. Why wouldn't we buy him a Lamborghini when he turns 16? Why wouldn't we buy him a house when he turns 18? That sort of thing. There's the other side of it too that we're going to talk about later. The ones that say, let them earn on their own. So either no help from us or sort of a nest egg to start with, but no, you don't get to live out of my wallet for the rest of your life. That's one of the parenting choices. Um, and I'm sure we just don't hear about them because they're healthier, but there's lots of rich parents out there that are doing the right thing. They're supporting their kids, they're providing them with advantages, good training, good schools, good equipment, all that stuff without sort of crossing that line. And I think that line's what we're here to talk about today a bit, isn't it?
Yeah, but also there's the parents who are too much pressure, like Will Smith with his son.
Absolutely, yes. Some of these, and that's another big question with Nepo Babies. It isn't really on our list, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. Is I always wonder in the cases like Jaden Smith, in the cases like Northwest that we're going to talk about later, whether the kids even really wanted to be actors and singers or whether they were forced into it by their parents, which would make it double as bad, right? Because then not only are you using your influence to get them jobs without having to go through the right processes, but if you're forcing them on top of that, if you're also forcing them to do something they don't want to do, it really says bad things about the parents.
Yes, also, could you tell what Will Smith told to Jade Smith?
Um, I'm not sure which quote you mean,
The
so we'll
I
have to
will
get you to
treat
say it.
you I treat you as adult when your movies will because mine.
Right. Yes. Now I remember that line, and he said that in public on a TV show. So this wasn't the private conversation. He called out his own child in the middle of an interview and said, "Yeah, you can. I'll cut you off when your movies start making more money than mine do." Which, as a side note, is a bold thing because Will is not pulling like he used to. He is not. He is not the star he used to be. He's got a whole bunch of other issues dragging him down, but this certainly did not help. And it really makes you wonder. As in try and put yourself in Jaden's shoes at that point. You thinking to yourself, maybe I only got this role because my dad's my dad. Was I good enough in this movie? And I mean, he's still only a teenager at this point, right? So he's questioning himself. He's doing all of that, and then his dad slams him with by basically saying, "Don't worry, you'll never be as famous as me." I mean, that's again, we're talking about nepo babies, but it's really in a lot of cases, it's the nepo parents that we really are talking about, right?
Yeah, and then also hates at him
Oh,
for bad acting.
oh yeah, yeah, and as it was pointed out in the one bit of research we did, these kids are in no-win situations, right? Northwest that we're going to talk about later got a role that they were seriously not qualified for, without even having to do an audition. But as a result of that, there is a record out there of them singing and dancing really poorly on a very professional stage with a lot of professional backup dancers that make it even more obvious. And again, you wonder, who did they really want to do that? Were they forced to do that? Were they pushed to do that? And more than anything else, it makes me wonder, what were their parents even thinking?
Yeah, also about this point, you thought that they don't want, but the parents want. It's the worst
Yes.
that when parents have dreams that they didn't accomplish, so they push
Hmm.
on their children.
Oh, yes, yes. And that's again, nepotism is a bad thing, but when it's done for those reasons, it's even worse, right? I mean, that is, I can't imagine a worse reason to push a child to succeed than because you didn't, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, and it's unfortunate these kids get all this hate online and all the social media trolling and getting slammed because all they did was did something they either wanted to or they were told to. You can't possibly hold these kids responsible, at least until they're adults. And then if they're acting poorly, then you can say it's because they were a nepo baby, but you're an adult now. You've got a chance to change, right?
yeah,
But, but one of the things that got me, and it really was obvious to me, the more research we did, is that there's an underlying theme behind this fascination with fame that people have. Because if we weren't fascinated by famous people, then they wouldn't have the power to do these things.
Yes,
They wouldn't. Yeah.
but on other hand, we see this also on small scale, like I told you back in the scenes, like for
Mhm.
example, doctors or lawyers. I don't know how it's in Canada or America, but in Poland, it's like when father is doctor and mother, then child too. Even if child is
Okay.
stupid, they have place at university and job letter.
Sure. Yeah. And that brings up an important point too. It's really easy to talk about Nepo babies and forget that they exist outside of entertainment industry because those are the ones that we see, right?
Yeah,
That fascination that I was talking about means every time there's a Brooklyn Beckham sort of event, a post or a comment, because they are famous, it gets up everywhere. It's on the news, it's on social media, it's everywhere. Where maybe when a doctor does that and uses his connections, oh, I donated $1 million to your university. You're going to make a spot for my son or my daughter, and that happens here too. I'm not going to try and deny that. Um, that doesn't it's underreported because it's not famous people, it's just rich people or people with connections. And it's not the same thing, right? The entertainment industry is a whole new level on top of this,
yeah,
but it's the ones we see the most of.
but it's still sad in the way that, for example, someone want to really be a doctor, but is
Oh
from
yeah.
poor family, so they can't
Yes.
afford go to university, and then he
Yeah.
see his classmate from high school who is from family of doctors, and he is have
Hmm.
bad grades and stupidities, and then
Yep.
go at university and open clinic.
Yep. Yep. And back to the entertainment industry, same thing. You go to your audition, you're as a child, a wannabe child star, and you knock it out of the park. You ace the audition, you sing it to the rafters, everybody's cheering and clapping. But then the famous person walks in with their kid, who happens in the case of the Lion King story in Northwest, to have the same production company as the play that's going on. So there's no question they didn't even have to audition; they were just given the role. And yes, hard on the kid itself, but yes, the dozens, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of kids that really would have benefited from that and really would have not only just put on a good show, but used it as a base, as a step in their growth as an actor and a singer to possibly go on to a very successful career of their own and to have that crushed by a famous person. Yeah, that's got to be absolutely heart wrenching.
I think you should tell the rest of story already about Northwest.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. The, the son of Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. Uh,
Doubted,
sorry.
doubted.
Daughter? Sorry, daughter of, well, I knew that too. Yeah, the daughter of Kim Kardashian and Kanye West uh, was given the lead role in a show about the Lion. It was the Lion King's 30th celebration, and I'm not going to speak ill of a child, but they were. What I will say is they were unprepared, untrained, did not know their steps, barely knew the words, did not perform on stage in any way that worked with anybody else that was on the stage. Just kind of came out there and yelled the lyrics and then had to be told even when to leave the stage.
And costume. That's
And the honestly, considering the net worth of their parents, the costume looked like they got it at a dollar store. It looked like, again, I'm not speaking ill of the child, but it looked to me like a furry chicken outfit. It did not look like a lion. It's shorts and a hat, and it's really bad. If you want to look it up to make sure I'm not overstating it, it is as bad as I'm saying, and I'm actually being quite nice.
and also she was lost where is exit.
Oh yeah, didn't know when to leave the stage, had to be helped off by the background singers, and background singers who, by the way, literally danced circles around her as a level of professionalism. And I mean it was bad because of the location. It's a school of performing arts, so of course they got a positive response. The crowd clapped, they stood up, they got a standing ovation. But as a number of reviewers pointed out, everybody gets a standing ovation because it's a school.
None,
So, and it got
not
recorded.
school.
Hmm?
It's just child. And whole thing was Hollywood professional
Hmm?
Broadway dancers and singers.
Yes. Yeah, I think the point that we were getting, thank you for correcting me, but the point we were getting to was that it got recorded and it's out there now and it's been watched a bajillion times and it has gotten so much negative press. There's no way you could shield that child from that press. Even if you did now, in 10 years, they're going to see it. And there's nothing they can do about it. And this is the worst kind of nepotism because the child in question wasn't even close to good enough. We're going to talk about another one later where they were almost good enough to get what they wanted, and the parents made a decision to get them there. But in the case of Northwest, it's not even close.
Yeah,
They were not ready for the job, but they got it because of their parental connections and possibly, in this case, actual pressure.
also, you know why also she got that role?
Why
Because
else?
family Kardashian have TV show at Disney Plus, and it was
Yes.
whole episode of that show about her preparation to the
Yes.
stage.
Yeah, that's right. There was the implication, at least, that the whole thing was staged, not only to get Northwest on stage, but to give them at least an episode of a reality TV show that would get them more views and therefore more money. So yeah, it looks like in that case it's not only nepotism; it might actually be using your child to increase your own personal wealth.
And
So yeah,
it's
that one's wrong on multiple levels.
it's also sad when I think that she go to school because she's 10 years old and her
Yes.
classmates can point out and mock her.
Oh yeah, and kids are nasty at that age, and if not now, within a couple of years when they all get to be teenagers. As much as I'm sure she'll be going to a private school with other rich kids, there's no way they're not going to mock that. And like I said considerably earlier, with the internet, it's here forever. She's going to be 90 years old, and somebody's still going to show her that clip and laugh at her. Right? I mean, it's never going to end. So, um, yeah, you really got to wonder about the parents in this.
And the mother, Kim Kardashian, dressed her up
Oh yeah,
like that.
yep, and yeah, Kim is one of those people we were talking about the fame earlier and being treated like royalty. The Kardashians are that group that they're famous for being famous. They're not famous singers, they're not famous actors, they're not famous anything. They're just really rich and famous for being famous. They're influencers, right? I mean, they don't have a traditional role like a movie star or athlete or things like
Yeah,
that. Right?
better way. What do you think about nepotism in influencer world? Because nowadays, I see a lot of people who are famous influencer opening for child social media even when the child is in belly mother.
Oh yeah, yeah. Literally before they're born, they're part of the brand. Um, and I think the Beckham story really brings that to the fore because the the big knock that Brooklyn has on his parents is that they don't treat anybody in the family like a person. They treat them like they're part of the legacy. You have to be the Beckham brand, and you're not allowed to not be that. You're not allowed to be yourself. Um, and every event becomes a Beckham event. You can't even have a private. I mean, they tried twice to have a private wedding. The first one was taken over by his mother, inappropriately dancing on him, and basically replacing the first dance. Can you imagine going to a wedding and they have the ceremony and then you go to the dinner afterwards and then they ask the bride and the groom to have the first dance together, and the bride's mother, or sorry, the groom's mother replaces the bride? I mean that's inappropriate. There
And,
was
and,
other
the,
rumors that the dance was, yeah,
and the dance
but
was
yeah, to
Latin.
yes, and it was, yeah, and the bride actually left the room, and rightfully so. I would have been enraged because this wasn't clearly wasn't part of her plan, and it looks like Brooklyn didn't know either. He claims that he thought he was going to his first dance, and then he got up there and it was his mother. But the whole event was an event. It wasn't a wedding. They had a host who was a professional person. It was all recorded on multiple cameras from different angles. They were worried about lighting and effects. It was a show. It wasn't a ceremony based on love and promises and future. It was a Beckham show. And I
The,
think that's finally what caused him to crack and just say, no, I want to be Brooklyn. I don't want to be Beckham Jr.
the best was also how the singer introduced Victoria Beckham to first
Mhm.
dance.
Yes, and what was the phrasing that they used?
The most
Oh,
beautiful
yes.
woman.
Yeah, yeah. At another woman's wedding, to say the sentence, the most beautiful woman in the room, and to bring anyone but the bride up at that point. It's almost like a bad movie. I'm sitting here, you can't see right now, but I'm sitting here actually holding my head, like, because I'm just reminded of that, and it just I'm almost out of words, right? Like, who would do that at another person's wedding? It's crazy, but it's absolutely cuts right to the point. This was an event about the Beckhams,
The
not
same,
about
the,
love. Yeah.
the same birthday of David Beckham.
Yep. Yeah. The 50th birthday party. Brooklyn, if I remember correctly, didn't show because
Because
he just, yeah,
they, he didn't show because the parents told him that he can only show up with wife, and
yes,
and party was for 100 people.
yes, yep. And they basically said, yeah, you can't bring your wife, and you have to be here from this time to this time for pictures. That was the important part, is that the Beckham image was sent out to all the social medias appropriately at the end of David's 50th. And yeah, watching that one, I kept thinking, you turned 50. I mean, it's not a big deal. I mean, most people do it. I'm not understanding why this involves a multi-million-dollar party to start with. Never mind whether it's a social event. You're just the guy getting older. Again, we come back to that special treatment and treating him like royalty. His 50th birthday, so what? It's a Tuesday. I don't care. But a lot of people do.
Yeah,
But I think this might be a time to draw a line here too between nepotism and just rich parenting. Let's call
yes,
it that for now. Your parents are well off. I don't see any problem with funding or training or gear. If they want to be a downhill skier, I don't see any problem with hiring them the best coaches and buying them the best skis and sending them off for 3 month training sessions in Switzerland. To me, I mean, not everybody has that access. Don't get me wrong; they've got an advantage, but I don't see that as being the same as saying, "Here's a company to run," when you have zero experience running a company, right? Or here's a role in a movie, even though you've never acted before, and you don't have to audition for it. There's to me,
Yeah,
there's a fairly clear line there. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree.
Yeah. Also, I mean, there's just connections, right? And this is where we get back to the famous people, even if they're not entertainers. Folks with lots of money are connected. They know other people with lots of money and who have power. And it's likely that at least some of those families that know each other have got social links, and they can, whether it's legitimate or not, they can find ways to fund and finance things.
Like
They
I
can find
said,
places.
like I said about doctors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, I mean, and again, there's that clear line, right? If your kid wants to be a doctor, and you hire them the best tutors, and you send them to the best schools, and they get straight A's, then hooray, go be a doctor. Good. But I think the problem is when they start getting D's and F's, and they still get to go and be a doctor because of who their parents are, right? Or they still get that seat at university, even if they don't graduate. They at least they get that seat that they. And I think the key thing is they didn't earn it, right?
Yeah,
It was bought for them
and
or
then
pressured into them.
they have money for clinic.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So they scrape by school, or maybe even their school is pressured to give them a passing grade. And then the second they walk out the door, their rich parents buy them a whole medical practice. And yeah, there's a clear difference between funding and supporting a child and nepotism. I think that, and to me, it's the qualifications of the kid at the point when they make the decision. They want to be an actor, great. And I think Jackie Chan has done this very well. Um, his son said, "I want to be an actor," and apparently Jackie's first response was, "No, you don't." And he stuck with it, and he stuck with it, and he said, "I want you to go to university." He said, "No, I want to act," and so he said, "Okay, I'll introduce you to the people I know in the industry, but that's it. I'm not using my influence. You're going to have to go to auditions. You're going to have to get your own roles. You're going to have to get your own agent. You don't, I mean, I can't take away your last name. Your last name, everybody knows who you are, but I'm not giving you any extra advantages." And that's a great example to me because his son had to go, and he's made a couple movies, and he's just not getting any traction, and nobody's watching him, and now he's starting to fade away. So to me, that one works.
Yeah,
When
or
you yeah.
Gordon Ramsay.
Yes, yeah, Ramsey, same idea. Uh, you're not cutting them off as such, but you're saying to them, you have a choice to make, and when you decide to go, I may or may not give you some seed money to start, but when you're going, you're on your own. And they don't say, "I won't catch you if you fall," right? Nobody says that, but I'm not going to throw money at you until you succeed, right? You're going
Yeah,
to have to earn this on your own, right? And I think, and one of the things you see that in is the self-made people, like Gordon Ramsay, like Jackie Chan. They did it the hard way. They understand the value of that, and they understand that they value their fame and their fortune because they feel that they earned it. And so they want to give that same opportunity to their kids. You never let them fall. You never let them fail. You never let them starve. But you also don't carry them to the success, because if somebody carries you to your success, it doesn't count as much, right?
yeah, I agree. Because on other hand, we have spectrum like winner patrol.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Why don't you get us started on that one?
No, you can.
Okay. So which was this? Which story?
The winner patrol, the one who have
Oh,
shop.
Gwyneth. Oh, yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. Yeah. Let's get to this. Kind of ties a lot of what we talked about already together, because Gwyneth Paltrow is from several videos that we've watched, was a Nepo baby, did get into the industry with the at least the influence of both of her parents and her uncle, who's, I think it's her uncle Steven Spielberg, right? Is that
Yes,
correct? Yeah.
grandfather, grandfather.
Grandfather. Okay. Grandfather. Okay. So yeah, the most famous of famous families. So getting into the industry, that's fine. She became an actor, and Many would say she's good at what she does, and I'm not going to argue with that. But she is a perfect example of what we were talking about right at the beginning. The child that has never experienced what most of us would call the real world. Never been hungry a day in their life, never were worried that they were going to have a place to live next month. And it shows in everything she does. I was reminded of the famous Marie Antoinette sentence that it's attributed to her. It's probably not true, but it gets the point across. They have this "let them eat cake" attitude, where you say to them, "Oh well, they don't they don't have a house on the lake to go and live in the summer," and the response is, "Oh well, I guess they'll have to stay in their house in the city." Which just shows a complete disconnect from the fact that they live in a tiny rented apartment that they're not sure if they can afford next month, right? There's just utter disconnection. And that's how you end up charging $725 for a candle, because you've spent your whole life being told you're special. Nobody's ever told you you're just another person. You start to believe it. And from the outside, that looks a bit crazy,
The best,
right?
yes, and the most fun for me was crab sandwich, she said.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Could
yeah.
you
The
explain?
the health thing, there's this has been a running thing with her, is she's selling these quote unquote health services, which doctors are saying are actively bad for you, not just not going to help you in the way that she said, but they're actively unhealthy. And one of them was, let me put it politely, fecal matter being used as a food source or a supplement. Um, we've also heard of goop and things flavored like body parts, and we don't need to go into the details, but they did show in the one video we watched. They scrolled through the website, and it's the pricing is just it shows somebody who is utterly disconnected with the world. $725 for a candle, $800 for a mask that you put on when you sleep at night. It's just it's actively unhealthy. A lot of it, the things that she's telling you to put in places that you shouldn't put things. Um, it's actively unhealthy, but she's getting away with it because of who she is, and she is who she is because she's never apparently never really seen how the real world works, at least as
And,
far as the rest of us see it.
and someone teased her as a joke and hate that where you eat for breakfast sandwich with lobsters. And
Yes.
she said actually address of
Yeah.
restaurant.
Yeah, she's had lobster breakfast so many times that she's actually got a favorite restaurant for her lobster breakfast. Not living in the same world as the rest of us. Right? Definitely not. I've had
Yeah,
lobster about 4 times in my life, and 3 times somebody else was buying, so, yeah, definitely not in the same world as me.
and it's fun for me
But
because we have two different spectrum. One Jackie Chan and Gordon Ramsay and your
yeah,
position, and other hand
yeah,
Gwyneth.
yeah, yeah, and it just shows, and I think that the good parents that we were talking about, like, Gordon Ramsay, I mean, the character he plays is a jerk, but he seems when he's interviewed, especially with his family, he's a really thoughtful parent. And Jackie Chan, I got the same impression of. They're the ones that realize the amount of pressure that's on these kids, right? They realize that growing up famous cannot be easy. Even if you're talented, even if you're like, Jaden Smith, a lot of people say he can act, but he's in a no-win situation. Because even if you're talented, there's always going to be those folks that say you bought your way to the top, or your dad got you here, or those things. So there's always going to get more than their own fair share of haters, and it's going to start when they're kids, right? Anytime a famous person's kid does anything, somebody's going to hate on it. Oh, you did that because you're rich. Yeah, but let's not hate the child for that, right? It's easy to
Yeah,
say, and I think a lot of people think that being wealthy makes up for that, and somehow being rich makes up for the fact that you have no private space, and every time you go to the store, somebody's trying to take your picture and all of that stuff. And I'm sure it makes up to it for some point, but as we've talked about repeatedly, and Gwyneth is one of the great examples, you got to be really careful, or your kid's going to grow up, and your messed up kid's going to grow up into being a messed up adult, and that's that's a lifelong issue that they're going to have to deal with.
yeah, and it's everything. But that they have also big pressure, like the Northwest had pressure.
Yeah,
We had to perform because
yeah,
her mother have content for reality show and father
oh yeah,
have connection production.
yeah, yeah. They're. I mean, that one's a really blatant example because they didn't even try to hide it, right? They literally walked in at the as so the reporting goes. This is not my opinion. This is what was reported as actually happened. Kim walked in at the end of auditions after all the other kids had spent days singing their guts out trying to get this role, and basically said, "We're in the same production company. Put my child in your show as the lead." And there was no audition. That's on record. There was no audition. The other kids were all just told to go home, and it was handed over. So yeah, and again, a tremendous amount of pressure on that child, even if they were only 10. If they got there to see even one or two other kids sing, it, I don't know, maybe it occurred to them that they're not that good. Maybe. I mean, at 10,
Yes,
maybe not. But
and
it's, yeah, like I
hate.
said, the problems. Oh yeah, and the hate that you're going to get, and I mean those, and you can't blame those other kids either, right? I mean, if you spent a year singing the Lion King song and doing the dance and getting it all absolutely perfect, and then you stepped out on that stage and confronted your fears and looked under that big empty auditorium with those incredibly famous producers sitting in front of you, and you sang it with all your soul, and you, by the end of it, you knew you nailed it. It was the performance of your life, and then to get told to go home because the famous kid's parents want the kid to have the job. That's got to be soul crushing, maybe even career ending. Maybe some of those kids never sang again.
Yeah, and also keep in mind that Lion King is iconic.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is the 30th anniversary Lion King Broadway show, right? That we're talking about here. So yeah, people paid, depending on who you believe, between $800 and $3,200 a seat to see this show.
And that
And
show end up at Disney Plus.
yep, it ended up on Disney Plus and all of that. And to be nice, her acting and singing would have been appropriate for an elementary school Christmas show. She's about, I mean, she can almost carry a tune. But compared to some of the other kids that auditioned, it's not even close.
Also, by the way, also the don't forget she have social media. So like I
Oh yeah,
said, it's pressure.
yeah. And how do you try and grow up normal after that, right? When your memories of being 10 years old, or being slammed by the international community on social media, right? I mean, how do you recover from that? That's a scar that's not going to go away without an awful lot of therapy.
Yeah,
So, but I think one of the things that's really important here is before we before anybody suggests this, um, we're not saying that the offspring are the problem. We're not blaming the kids for being Nepo babies. They're 10, 12, 14, 15 years old. They are not legally or mentally prepared to be making decisions like that. I think it's fair to say we're very clearly putting the blame, such as it is, on the parents and the directors and the producers who allow those parents pressures and money. And in the case of, like you said, doctors, those universities that are caving to big donations to put people in places where they simply aren't qualified for.
yes.
Yeah. So I think that's important. Like I said, I don't blame the kids. I'm not a psychologist, but I will go out on a limb here and say that it's not positive, healthy growth to be a nepo baby. It just can't be.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, and like I said, I can't blame the kids either from a very simple point of view. If I was 10 years old and I said I wanted to drive race cars, and my daddy bought me an F1 team, I'd say yes. I was 10, right? You'd be crazy not to. Of course, I get to drive F1 cars. Cool, let's go. And we're going to get a little more details on that later. That's this very specific real story that happened. He wasn't 10, but the Stroll family bought a Formula One team so that their not quite good enough son could have a race car to drive. And he's been running into people ever since. So, but yeah, that I just wanted to bring that up as the point that I never blame the kids, right? It's not their fault.
yeah,
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I guess yeah. Let's get into this because this ties back into what we were talking about earlier and what I just said. Not all nepo babies are in the entertainment industry. We see them because they're in the entertainment industry, and everything the entertainment industry does gets videoed, so we see it. It also gets marketed and edited and lit and all of that. So we see that. But there's other ones like you mentioned earlier, you know, the doctors or even rich parents who make donations to universities to get their kids in spite of the fact that the kids don't have
I also,
the grades.
yeah, I also don't know if it's in Canada too, but in Poland, even some politicians are children of
Oh yeah,
politicians.
yep, yep. Well, does that happen in Canada? Yes. Our last prime minister was the son of a prime minister from about 25, 30 years ago. And it's happened in the States as well. The Bushes, there was George Bush Sr. and George Bush Jr. were both presidents. So yeah, it happens over here. And yes, that one's always a question of whether it's nepotism or just connections. But either way, they're using their power to get those kids into jobs that often you watch the second generation isn't as good as the parent was.
Yeah,
They just don't have the natural skill. But back to the Formula One story. Lance Stroll is a fairly talented driver. He worked his way up through the levels that goes F4, F3, F2, and then F1, Formula One, which is the big boys. He was good enough to be running at the top of the field up to about F3, but that was it. He ran out of talent at that point. So he got into F2. He did not win. And typically speaking, you got basically 2 years in Formula Two to impress somebody to get hired by a Formula One team. He had not done that. His career as a driver was over, essentially, because he wasn't good enough to get to Formula One, and that's the only place that he wanted to be and the only place that pays. So his father, a very famous Canadian businessman, bought the Aston Martin Formula One team, the whole team. This is a team with a yearly budget of 150, 160 million euros. He bought the team, and the only rule that he added was that as long as he owned the team, his son could drive one of their two cars. And so Lance Stroll has now been in Formula One for half a decade or more now. He has caused a tremendous number of accidents. He has failed to perform at the level of his teammates. He has wrecked cars, crashed cars. He's simply, I mean, he's not bad. He's kind of on that borderline we were talking about. He's just not quite good enough. He couldn't quite get there on his own merits. So he almost was one of those kids that was supported by his parents until he succeeded, but he couldn't quite get there. So then he turned into a Nepo baby because daddy literally bought him a ride in Formula One.
that's sick.
And yeah, and now, so like I said, for 6 years, like we were talking about, there's dozens, maybe hundreds of drivers in the world that would make better use of that seat, that would score more points, finish higher up, be in less accidents, run into less people, but none of them have got a shot because that team only has one seat because the other seat is taken up by Lance, and nobody's allowed to make him leave. No matter how many cars he crashes, nobody's allowed to make him leave. So he's actually putting other people at risk, at physical risk, because a better driver wouldn't get in these accidents. But it's because he's a Nepo baby. So yeah, it goes way, way beyond the entertainment industry. And again, it goes way, way beyond the people who should have had that job, because in some cases, Nepo babies actually put other people at risk.
Yeah,
And you can say the same thing about businesses too. Lots of, these folks give their child a business to run, and the kids
yeah,
have no idea how to run a business, and the business goes broke and goes out of business, and all those people lose their jobs. And arguably, that wouldn't have happened if somebody competent had been in that chair.
like I said about doctors, it's also
Yeah,
risky because they people can die.
yeah, yeah. Um, there's the kind of a joke that isn't funny. Somewhere out there, there's a doctor that got 51%. Right? Somewhere there's a doctor that just passed. But the truth is that somewhere out there, there's a doctor who didn't pass, at least not legitimately. They had failing grades, and a parent or a relative walked into that university and handed over a ton of cash and bought them a new wing, or something. And that guy got his degree, and he shouldn't have it. Hmm? I'm not going to name names because I don't want to get sued, but that has happened. There is no question.
Yeah,
So,
also about
yeah,
Brooklyn,
yeah.
you should tell about trademark because
Yes, yes. Pretty hard not to feel like you're not being treated as a child, and that we talked about earlier about the entertainment industry and how it's sort of this little bubble, and it's not what you do, it's who you are that's important. So Brooklyn Beckham had their name trademarked, which is not, as they made clear in the video, that's not abnormal for a famous person, is because it protects them in the future if they want to put out like Brooklyn hair care products, and they can use their own name because it's trademarked. But in this instance, it appears that that wasn't done for that reason. It was done to protect the Beckham name so that no one else could use Brooklyn Beckham's name and image to sell things that weren't approved by the Beckham family. So it wasn't about him. Again, it was about that royal family
and you
that is their parents.
and you know why he also crashed on Instagram because the Victoria Beckham told him to to give away the rights to his trademark name to her.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
she,
to her. Yeah,
like he can marry the Nicole, but give away
yeah,
rights.
yeah, yeah. So again, how much more do you need to be told that it's not about you, right? It's never been about you. When your mother suggests legally taking the rights to your name, that's that's not healthy. That's You're telling your child that they're not a person, they're a commodity.
Yeah,
And it's horrible. So um we've been talking in general, and we've talked about a couple of the specific examples, Lance Stroll and Northwest. Um but maybe some of the other actual examples. The Rebecca Black story was interesting to me. For those
yeah,
that don't know, this is a teenage girl who really wanted to make a music video, like really wanted to make a music video. And her parents, who are not in the entertainment industry and therefore at least maybe shouldn't have known better, maybe they didn't see this coming, but they paid a huge amount of money. They hired professional videographers, background dancers, singers, the whole deal, everything. But Rebecca herself was a very average singer with no dance training and no sort of professional training background. And as hard as everyone worked, the video was mocked ruthlessly and turned into memes. And it has been traumatic for her for years and years. And once again, this child is paying a lifelong price for bad parental decisions. And in this case, it's In this case, this one to me was a little bit sad because her parents, because they weren't famous,
They wanted,
maybe,
they wanted to
yeah,
give for her birthday the music
yeah,
video. And also,
yeah,
I don't know if she wrote the song lyrics or someone else because the lyrics were stupid.
yeah. The whole thing was, like I said, it was really professionally put together, but it never should have been made. And but I think that the thing that I saw there was, if her parents had been entertainers, I would have felt more anger towards them because they should have known better. In this instance, I wonder, part of me wonders if it was just well meaning parents who wanted to give her a great birthday present and simply didn't understand what the results could be or inevitably were going to
Yeah,
be. So that one's kind of, that one made me cringe a little bit because that one, compared to some of the other ones, that one maybe you didn't see coming, at least not as much.
yeah.
But we also talked about, when we were planning this, earned versus unearned jobs, because like we said, there's a
Moment
difference. Oh, yes, please.
about
Yeah.
Rebecca Black.
Yes,
Also,
please. Yeah.
I noticed in the rich parents, not famous, but rich,
Yeah.
they
Yes.
they they have mindset that the children are the best, the most smart, and all
Hmm.
that, and
Yeah.
others are not. Like
Yeah.
my mom working at school, and a lot of parents argue about silly things, small silly
Oh, yeah.
things, because
Yeah.
their children are like king or prince, because they're the most smart, the most
Mhm.
kind, and all
Oh,
that.
yes.
And I
Yeah.
feel like
And
parents of the Rebecca could think the same, like she's so
yeah.
talented and all
Yeah.
that.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I think every parent thinks that about their kids to some point. Um, Yes, maybe maybe not all, because I know some parents that have said some very funny and not particularly nice things about their kids. I'm friends with a lot of people that have teenage kids, so sometimes they don't say very nice things about them. But you're absolutely right, especially at the young ages, especially like the elementary school ages. I think most parents think their kids the smartest, brightest, most, going to be famous, all of that. But and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with having a positive view of your kids, but when that gets combined with a lot of money, you can end up showing the rest of the world that they're not who you think they are.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so that, I mean, that's a very good point. And there is, I think that brings us, yeah, sort of the intentional versus unintentional nepotism too,
Yeah,
because the Northwest, that's intentional. That's like, here, put my child on stage so they can start to be famous, and I can get some footage for my show. There's the unintentional ones, like Rebecca Black's parents, which seem, for all the world, like they were honestly thought they were doing a good thing. It just blew up in their faces. So there's that range, but there's also what we talked about earlier, where the helping your child, supporting your child is one thing. Um, and it not every child that's of a famous person that succeeds does so because they were a Nepo baby. My favorite story on that was Hannah Montana. I had no idea this was the case. Now Miley Cyrus, but the Hannah Montana character, when they started, they had to audition to get the position, and in fact, it's kind of a Nepo daddy situation there, because apparently Billy Ray Cyrus, her father, was never on the tables to play the character that he played in that show. He didn't have an audition or anything else. He was hired after she was, and there are at least rumors that she applied some pressure to get him into the show. So it's kind of a reverse Nepo baby thing, right?
yeah,
But so yeah, that happens too, and it also does, I think, point out that Nepo baby can be a misleading phrase because it isn't just parents that do this for kids, right? Rich kids do this for parents, rich uncles, rich aunts, rich relatives. It's not only parents doing it for kids. It's just when it's done with kids, it's so much sadder because the kid's going to have to pay the price, right?
Yeah, also, to be honest, I don't
Mhm.
like Nepo Babies in music
Yeah.
because, for example, in Poland, there is few singers who are mediocre, but they get better, bigger, famous singers'
Oh yeah.
fathers.
Yep. Yep. And that just good enough. It's that I think that ties in really well with the Stroll story I told about Formula One too. They were almost good enough, or good enough to sing locally at a tavern maybe or a pub on Fridays, but they're way beyond that because of the money and the influence that was spent, and so they end up looking a bit foolish because they're just above the level that they're capable of performing at. Go to
Yeah,
a concert you go to a concert, you expect a certain level of singing talent. You expect them not to break on notes. You expect them to stay on time. You expect them to
but
know their
that's,
choreography. Yeah.
but that's, I mean, voice, because
Yes.
some
Yeah.
singers have characteristic voice and
Yeah.
some are mediocre. Like, it's
Yeah.
okay,
They're very.
but
Yeah.
nothing special.
Yeah. Very mediocre, and like you said, they're way above where they should be. They should be singing in talent shows on the weekends. Um, Lance Stroll should probably be driving, sports cars in Europe for $100 a month. Um, they've been elevated way beyond their skill level, and it shows. And they end up looking bad for it.
I also
Uh,
don't like actors like
mhm.
that, because in
Yep.
Poland we have few actors who are sons or daughter of famous Polish
Yeah.
actors, and they are really, really mediocre
Yeah.
actors.
Yeah. Really mediocre. Yeah. Jaden Smith is a great example of that. He's not a bad actor, but I can't imagine that he's going to win many roles on his own if he changed his last name and didn't tell anybody who he was. He's
Yeah,
okay, he should be in community theater. He's probably, good enough to be a leading man at some local theater company in a city, maybe. Um, but he's certainly not at the same level of skill as his father.
or
Because say
TV,
whatever you liked about Will Smith, he can act, right? He is
yeah,
capable of acting. So
or he
yeah.
can act as TV shows. Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 He'd be perfect on like a soap opera or something. He's got that level. He's that almost level. And we wouldn't probably have even heard about him except that he got pushed beyond that. And in his one, I mean, talk about getting hoisted on your own petard. The the movie after or the show After Earth, where he starred with his father, Will Smith, how do you show that a child actor isn't quite as good as they should be? Well, you put them on stage with a world class actor. In this case, his own father, by comparison, made him look bad in the show, right? So
yeah,
it's unwinnable situation, and the fact that he showed up at an Academy Awards wearing a mansion on his head, and I get it. He's a little broken, but he's also one to put credit where credit is due. He's one of the ones that just had one of those socially conscious moments where he came out and said, "Oh my God, we need to feed people. People are starving." Like it, and it was again he got mocked for that because you dude, like you're 16 and you're just figuring this out. Yes, yes, he is. Why? Because they're kept in a bubble. These
yeah,
kids are not allowed to, they don't go to regular school. They don't go to the park and play. They don't go online and play video games with their friends. They're kept in a bubble by their parents and their fame, right?
yeah.
And not only, yeah. And not
But
only that, what they're told is go ahead.
go to YouTube
I
first.
was I was just going to say what they're told is important. And I mean, kids they don't know. They got to be told. They got to be taught, right? But what they're told is real, and what's important is followers on Instagram and camera time and the number of movies you've been in and how much you charge to do an ad for a product. That's what you're told your worth is, what your value is, instead of what we'd like to see, I think, is teaching actual human values
Yeah,
and growing up in private. Like the idea of growing up in public is terrifying to me. I'm glad I didn't have to go through that.
I want to
I
say
cannot imagine.
something.
I was awkward enough as a teenager. I don't need a camera on me, right? But go ahead.
There is Polish thinker who had a reality show about living
Yeah.
in his house. And
Yeah.
after years, when his child grew up, he said he regret he was in that show because if
Yeah.
he was adult, he didn't
Yeah.
agree to film
Yeah.
his as child.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think this wraps us back around to Brooklyn Beckham again, because he said it out loud. He said the thing that no Nepo baby is supposed to say, which is, I feel like I'm treated like a commodity, like an item. I don't feel like a son. I don't feel like a daughter. In fact, I don't even feel like a person. I'm not allowed to be myself. Everything I do is public. I have no private place to myself. My name is trademarked. My family fights happen in public, and there's no winners. Right? Nobody wins in that. The parents look bad. The kids got emotional damage. I mean, I know that's a joke phrase, but it's true. Um, Nobody wins here except maybe the paparazzi and the news.
Yeah, also, it's not only damage, but also hate, because
Oh yeah,
people are saying, why you complain? You have
yeah,
great life. Parents did everything for you. You have
yeah,
money. If not
yeah,
parents, you didn't meet Nicole, who is also
yeah,
Nepo baby. And
yeah,
it's just you nuts to now complain and
yeah, and
crazy.
and yeah, and I get that too because from the outside, like I said, being rich and famous looks pretty cool. It looks like I get to have a Lamborghini and I get to have a mansion and I get to go out for dinner with other famous people and I don't have to worry about bills and all that. But I really think the Brooklyn Beckham, because it is so public, I think that sort of pulls the lid off of that. If you really look, that family's a mess. I mean, as far as being a family, they're great as a business. They're doing grand as a business. They're making money faster than they can spend it. But as people and as a family, I'm very, very tempted from what little we've seen to call them dysfunctional.
Yeah, also,
Is-
also, why we worship former soccer player and
Yes.
former
Yeah.
Spice Girl singer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole different side. We talked about that right at the beginning too. This how we worship famous people, and how we give them power because they were in a movie or they sang a song or they kicked a ball. Um, we that could be a whole nother topic of conversation. Is what is fame, and what does it do? Because yeah, it's arguable that the Spice Girls didn't make the world a better place. It's very arguable that David Beckham playing football did not make the world a better place. So why do we value them so much?
Yeah,
Is it just because they're rich? Is it just because we saw them on TV? Or is there something else? But that's a whole different conversation. But it is key to this one
yeah,
because that's where they get their power, right?
yeah,
And yeah, and like you said too, it's I'm gonna be clear again because we keep slipping back to talking about entertainers because it's easy. Those are the stories that are in the public. But there's other types of nepotism too. Like you mentioned earlier, when a well-known person dies, and instead of being replaced by someone with the talents and the skills, they're replaced by a relative because it feels like it's a continuation. And that one just makes me think of royalty in history, right? The primogeniture, your oldest son takes the throne when you die, right? Whether they were good at it or not. It's a very weird way to decide who gets a job.
Yeah, but I don't like it in so
No,
many levels. I can
yeah,
give you Polish example and then
yeah,
more universal
yeah,
examples. Do
yeah.
you
Please.
remember Shrek and Donkey?
Yep, yep.
One of really good actor dubbing in Polish Donkey. Everybody
Okay,
loves. Even at hospital, children like at him. But like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, something like that, he died. And now
mhm,
they are making Shrek 5 and they cast his magical son to act
uh-huh.
and add AI voiceover over him to sound like his father.
Yeah, and I can imagine. I know Eddie Murphy did the voice here, but there's probably 100 people that can do that voice pitch perfect.
Yes,
Because
there's
yeah,
one
yeah,
actor, for example. Do you know movie Inside Out? Pixar made about emotions.
yes, yep,
There was like elephant Bing Bong character and
yeah,
actor who dubbing in Polish the Big Bong. He literally sounds like the actor who dubbing Donkey, so he
right,
could replace him.
yeah,
But not, they didn't do casting. They cast because everybody online said we should cast his son because it's his
yeah,
son, so he know his father how to act.
yeah,
But
and that's a
he's
weird. Yeah, okay,
but
good.
but he didn't even sound like his father.
No,
They were at AI.
yeah, and that's a weird twist on nepotism because it wasn't the parent that did it, right? It
Yeah,
was. It sounds like it was public outcry that caused this to happen. So that's extra weird. But yeah, that's a really cool story. I didn't know that. But you said you had a more general one as well, right?
yeah. Another example. Do you know movie Rogue One? Star
Yes.
Wars.
Yep.
There
Yep.
was Leia, Princess Leia, but
Mhm.
Carrie Fisher died, so they
Yep.
cast her daughter and add the face in
Mhm.
AI, CGI.
Yeah. 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 Instead of finding, I mean, the with CGI and makeup, they could have made anybody look like her, right? But yeah, it is weird. But I like both of those examples because they're kind of nepotism, right? A child got a job because of their parent, but they're kind of not nepotism because it wasn't the parent directly that did it. So that's an interesting bleed. That really makes me think because that means that at some level the public supports nepotism
Yeah,
because that's what it looks like, right? I
I
mean, it.
saw
Yeah.
another example. Now is movie biopic about Michael Jackson and his
Yep.
nephew cast as Michael Jackson instead of
Yes.
new actor.
Yep. Now, in that case, he does look a lot like him. But again, there's damn sure there's better Michael Jackson impersonators out there than his nephew. There are people making a living in Las Vegas pretending to be Michael Jackson. So, yeah, there was a lot of people that could have got that role that probably have more experience and are probably better suited for it. That because, as I understand that, his nephew does not have acting experience. He basically got the job because he's related. So,
Yeah, also every time there's like singer dying, the children go sing their songs like
yeah,
on memorial and other places.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, and again, that if it's to honor the parent, that's one thing. But if it's to get famous before the parent gets forgotten, that's another thing altogether.
No,
Excuse me.
it's just
Mm.
because they looks nice because they sing his father or mother
Yeah,
song. Not like
Yeah.
they get talent or something, but because it looks nice in public eyes.
Yeah, that's true. Um, and somehow that reminded me of Julian Lennon, John Lennon's son, who managed to put out one really, really popular song, "Sitting on a Pebble by the River Playing Guitar" is the first line. But then he disappeared because he was a one-hit wonder, and he only got his one hit because he was the son of John Lennon. But uh, yeah, so it's everywhere. It's been around for all time, and I think we've been touching on it the whole show here. Is it's one of the reasons why it's bad. I mean, it damages the kids. That people don't get a good a show as they would have got. Even the parents maybe are getting lashback from other people for doing it. But the people I
Pressure,
feel, yeah, the
pressure.
people I've go go ahead.
I said pressure.
Pressure. Oh yeah, yeah, the pressure that they're under. Um, but to me, the other group that we've got to talk about is we've mentioned them a couple times. The people that do have the talent, the ones that have put in the years of training, they've gone to the tryouts, if it's for a sport, if they're trying to get into the Olympics, or they've gone to the soccer tryout or the football tryout. They've put in years working in community theaters. They've put in their time to learn how to sing and how to act. And then they don't get the job because nepotism gives it to somebody else. And those honestly are the people I feel the worst for because they might never become famous or rich or even happy because their chance got taken away by somebody who was not as skilled and as talented as they are.
Yeah.
So I guess um, we always sort of try and as we get towards the end of these things, we start to look for a positive side of it. And I looked and looked, and I don't know if there is one for this. What I'd love to see is nepotism to disappear. And I think the way we do that is to devalue the parents. Just because you're famous doesn't mean your kid gets to be famous.
Also,
Um,
also, some areas we can support talents, like for
yeah,
example, singers. We can support buying songs.
yeah, buying their music, watching their videos. I get there. You go. Thank you. There's the happy spot I'm looking for. There's the happy way to end this. Um, when you see talent, support it. Don't support somebody just because they're somebody's kid. When you see somebody singing in a coffee shop and they sound like they deserve a record contract, put $5 in their cup. Put a €2 coin in the cup on the street of the very talented street singer that's only through bad luck not got a record coming out. If you see kids playing local sports, support them if you've got the finances, right? Support your local training places. Get kids out, get them supported, get them doing anything, get them into theater, and support them and build their talent in a safe environment. And don't shove them out on the stage until they're ready.
Also,
That, yeah.
also share with people the talent
Yes.
like on
Yes.
internet.
Yes, yeah, we've got the chance now. We've got the opportunity. This is something that even 30 years ago, you couldn't do this. But Justin Bieber was discovered on the internet. And he's another thing you could do a whole story on, but and how messed up he is. But he got discovered on the internet singing cute songs as a teenager. So, yes, when you see somebody talented, when you see somebody that you'd like to see them succeed, hit the share button, share it with your friends. This is how you get the talented people to the top.
Also, don't have prejudice to Nepo Babies because, for
Yeah.
example, Nicolas Cage is good actor and Nepo
Oh yeah.
Baby.
Yeah. And I think that's what we were talking about earlier too, the difference between being a Nepo baby and the son of a famous person. Or a child of a famous person, it doesn't necessarily mean that they got the job because of who their parents are. in a lot of cases, like Nicolas Cage, like some of the other ones we've talked about tonight, they are skilled. They have the skills. They have the talent. When they're, yes, they got the position because of who their parents were, but then they excelled in that position. And that's
Yeah,
different. Yeah. Because they did the work. They've got the
yeah,
talent. They did the hard work that it takes to be good at anything. And it would be really nice if we could reward them for that.
we can't have prejudice like anger and hate to every.
Yeah. 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 That's a great point. Don't hate these kids. It's not them. Don't say it's all right because they're famous. Oh, they can go cry at home in their $1 million house. They're still kids. They're still crying. They're still hurt. Those insults on the web are never going to go away. They're never going to recover because of
Yes,
something their parents did to them.
I agree.
Yeah. So support talent when you see it. There's a nice line to go out on, right?
Yes,
Well, thank you for
even
having me again.
you
Yeah.
can also support even with nice words. You don't have
Yes.
to do a dollars
Yeah.
shower.
Yeah, and this I haven't done this yet on this on our podcast, but you lead me right to it. I'm going to mention that if anybody has ever watched Dirty 20 Gaming, you've seen that every single show ends with the same sentences. Be nice to each other. It's that simple. So
I,
if you see somebody doing something good, say good job, right? Like thank you for pointing it out. It doesn't have to be money in the cup. It doesn't have to be buying a ticket for their show. You see somebody doing something and they're good at it, tell them. It makes a world of difference.
and share.
And share, yeah, and share them with everybody because yeah, the world can be a nasty place unless you really, really look. But there are talented people and there's amazing things to see and to do out there. So um, yeah.
See you next time.
Bye bye.